Hi, friends. This is Megan. If you're new here, this is my podcast, Kind of Coast Fire, where I talk about decreasing hours at my corporate job, specifically down to 20 hours per week, and how that's affecting my mental health and my finances. And actually, I think there might be a lot of you out there because I've been getting messages since I started this podcast from people who said that they also went down to part-time or that they're thinking about doing it. And I didn't realize there were so many of us. I don't know why I'm surprised. I think a lot of people would take a step back from work if they could. So if that's you, whether you're doing it or thinking about it, welcome. I also want to plug my YouTube channel. I just made one. I forgot to mention it in my last podcast episode. I'm terrible at marketing myself. But you can find me on YouTube as well. It is also called Kind of Coast Fire. And my podcast is also on that YouTube channel, which isn't new. But what is new is that I've started recording videos about my budget and how I set up my accounts so far. So if that sounds interesting to you, go check it out. I've been kind of casually in the personal finance space on and off since I think the beginning of 2022. I've never been comfortable sharing like salary or budgets, like full budgets, because I just felt like it was too personal, maybe too identifying, although you'd have to like really be stalking me or like know me personally. And I have been sort of getting away from that in the YouTube videos that I've been making. I think what I was resistant to was feeling like judged by other people. People on the internet have a lot of opinions. And I feel like anytime I like share a little bit about my life or how I do things, like somebody's got feedback. And that's cool sometimes. Like sometimes it's good feedback. Well, I guess it doesn't even honestly matter if it's good or bad. Like sometimes I'm just not in the mood to receive feedback. But sometimes I'm receptive to it if it's good feedback, and sometimes I'm not. And, you know, sometimes like the way that I do things is just how I do things. And it may not always make mathematical sense. It might not be the most efficient way to handle something. You might do it completely differently, but in a lot of cases, like I've thought it through, or at least I've done it for a while and it's working for me. I think it's especially true because I'm single in that I live alone and relatively healthy and in a pretty low cost of living area. So there are a lot of things that work for me that might not work for you. And I just hear from some people like, well, this would never work for me because blah, blah, blah. And I don't know what to tell you. I believe you. I believe that you know your situation. And I guess, you know, just believe my situation. Like, I'm fully aware that spending $500 a month on food could be, to a lot of people, construed as a lot of money, especially if you assume that like 2 people will be double that, 3 people will be 3 times that. And I believe you. Like, I'm sure you have to rein it in more if you have kids. Sorry. Anyway, I think I must be in like a mood today. If I want your feedback, I will ask for it, okay? I got some frustrating messages today and yesterday. I'm not going to talk about it though. You can go see me have a hissy fit on Instagram if you want. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, it is bitch.fires. You should add me and we'll be friends. As long as you're not an asshole. Well, even if you're an asshole, I'll probably like you. I'll just get mad and get over it. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about how I used to view success. And this is kind of inspired by... That sounds strange. It's inspired by myself. No. This is an extension of the episode I did about the person I was 10 years ago and why she would think I'm a failure. I think that's clearly tied to what I thought of as success at the time. So in the past, these are the kinds of things that I used to use as markers of success. And these aren't necessarily bad. Like, this isn't like a keeping up with the Joneses thing. I was so scared of how other people would perceive me. Like, a lot of the time I was telling my friends, I'm so broke, I can't pay for anything. Like, I didn't care if they thought I was poor. But I do think it is tied to external validation in a lot of ways. Obviously, a lot of them had to do with work. Like, where I was in the corporate hierarchy was a big deal to me. My salary, of course, like that number was really important to me. And I just don't give a shit about salary anymore. I do care about my net worth a lot. And TBH, I'm trying to care less. But salary, I'm kind of past that. Because we all know people who burn through their whole salary. You know, like, it's not that impressive to me if you make a lot of money. Another thing I cared about, this is a big one, was performance reviews at my job. Oh man, I don't know if it's because I think part of it is like it was very important for me to be a good student. Like, I always wanted a good grade, you know? So getting a good performance review was really important to me. I got like all the outstandings. But do you know what happens when you get outstandings? You get promoted. At my first job, I was promoted within like a year, and then I was promoted within the next year. And then I hated my job, so I switched to a role where I was an individual contributor. And then they promoted me within the year. And of course, a lot of that's on me. I could have said no, but I didn't want to say no because, again, corporate hierarchies, those are important to me. And I say this as someone who's been a meets expectations girl for the past several years. It's better. It's better for me anyway. And I've gone through like a lot of really intensive therapy about external validation and shifting to a more internal locus. And I'm not good at it. I'm still working on it. But it was really bad. It was really bad when I first started working. So those performance reviews were really important to me. Some non-work stuff, I think, would definitely be my apartment, of course, like how my living space looked. I wanted like a new kitchen, an updated kitchen. Now I don't give a rip about a kitchen. I'll rock a vintage kitchen. In fact, sometimes like it's better. Like, I've been in homes where the oven's from the 70s and it works fantastic. The bathroom, I always wanted like a really nice bathroom. To be honest, I still like a nice bathroom. I don't like at least redo the grout in these apartments. Jesus. Anyway, I wanted like a nice updated apartment in like an old building, but it's been gutted, you know? And it's not because I like necessarily needed to live in a space like that. I've mentioned before, I'm not the most design oriented person. Like, I still have things I care about, but I can be pretty happy in just an average run-of-the-mill apartment. And I don't need a lot of space. Again, I'm going to reiterate that this is not necessarily like me saying these are bad things to care about, because I know a lot of you probably are more aesthetic people and you like to have like well laid out, beautiful places. And maybe that is to impress other people a little bit. Maybe you like to host. I don't know. It's not bad. But I've realized that it's one of the things that I cared about a lot that actually doesn't matter to me for who I am. Speaking of which, things that people care about that are okay, but I don't. I've never actually been a car person. I really never cared what I was driving, what anybody else was driving. I was just happy to have a car. And in fact, didn't have a car for years and years. So that's not a big deal to me. And it wasn't really anything that, I thought I needed. And then I think the other big thing that I cared a lot about was being able to treat other people, which I think is a good thing. But I remember a lot of nights where I would like pick up the tab or I'd pay for the karaoke room when I couldn't really afford it. But I also knew that the people I was out with also couldn't afford it. So it was like, I wanted to be a nice person. And it was like, okay, I'll just take the hit instead of everybody taking the hit. So that was me like 10 years ago up to like 5-ish years ago. And now this is also through therapy, a lot of it, but also because I'm part-time now. So it's even changed a little bit in the past few weeks. But before that, a bigger motivation was therapy, where they really try to guide you to figure out what your values are. So now I think of success as like having leisure time, having more leisure time than I would have before. Like, I feel rich when I can spend the afternoon reading. I feel like an old school aristocrat. Just me and my book in the armchair, you know? Or like having long and deep conversations with somebody, having the time to do that, having the mental and emotional energy to do that, and being able to connect with another person, or feeling like I have time to talk to strangers, which I know people do with like a full-time job as well. I did not though. And I do credit some of that introversion to working because I just expended all of my energy. I feel really successful and rich when I can learn new skills, particularly when those skills aren't related to making money. Like I've mentioned this before, I'm like doing a bunch of languages on Duolingo. I'm actually doing more languages now on Duolingo. I need to pick a few languages because this is getting unsustainable, even with the amount of extra time that I have. But I also want time for peace and contentment. I don't need to like be doing something all the time. And in fact, I think that's another measure of success, like that feeling of serenity. And I know that like people don't feel happy all the time, of course. Like you don't feel ecstatically excited at all times. That's just not realistic. People are sad sometimes, or they just have a meh day. Even that's an over-exaggeration, I think. Like, I would like to know, there's probably been some psychological study to talk about like what percentage of people's lives are actually spent being actively happy. And I bet it's pretty small. But I do feel like general contentment most of the time. Like I'm A-okay most of the time. And for someone who's struggled with a lot of depression, that's a pretty big deal. So that makes me feel pretty rich. And naps. I definitely measure success in naps. I've been taking my naps, love my naps. I loved naps when I was working too, but it was just logistically harder because like who wants to take a nap at 5 p.m.? Then you're not going to go to bed. Much better to take a nap at 2 p.m. Much better. Okay, I don't think that's an exhaustive list, but those are the major ways that my views have shifted. And I'm not saying my life's perfect now or anything, but I do think it's better. So I'd love to hear from you guys what you think of as success, how you feel work contributes to your feelings of success. Are you someone who is obsessed with external validation like I was? Or maybe you found a way to make that work for you. Good for you. We love to see it. Leave a review, follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube. Keep listening to my podcast, please. Even though I'm kind of bad at posting sometimes, kind of like fucked up last week. But I'm just trying not to overschedule my life, you guys. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Love you, bye.